as a part of trying to capture some of what I used to do in Vents, especially for such a long game, and getting the detail that I seem unable to divorce myself from. Rain. There's some rain coming down. I want to give an overview of where we are at the beginning of the video. So, the battle's been raging for, well, I mean, it started at 9. It is 1 p.m. now. We've got an overall more aggressive stance by Murat in terms of taking on the coalition forces while they're at their weaker state here, earlier in the battle than Napoleon did historically. Well, than Murat did historically. He had orders that didn't allow him to engage, basically. Napoleon's coming on the field. He would have the right to start an engagement at this point. Of course, if the coalition had already opened things up, Murat would have been free to pursue. But what we've got is basically a transfer of units from Clanau's 4th Corps trying to come down here to help cover and protect the rest of the army of Bohemia that's on the board, which is Wittgenstein and Kleist. Wittgenstein has been, they took some casualties trying to cut in here, mainly Cav harassment, and they're not terribly happy. They're in much worse shape. Cav paid some price for it, there's no question. We get, oh shit, I got a fire there that I did not remember to take. I want to do that because that's kind of important. But anyway, we've got Wittgenstein having taken heavy losses. His command is actually disordered now. There was some confusion as to whether or not it was, but with the routes off the board, etc., I'm going to count it as disordered. When it happened, I did the recount and it came out lower than I thought, but I think I was counting in the disordered units as the 2nd edition rules do. Anyway, we're getting into the details that I shouldn't get into. Kleist here has been holding out relatively well, causing significant losses on Poniatowski. Victor, over here, well, about over here, has taken the brunt of the damage, though, for the French forces. And Lauriston has done a pretty good job of kind of outflanking the Russian position and helping drive them away there. Over here, Aguilera, he's fatiguing himself heavily trying to chase after these Austrians and not really getting to engage them. He was initially stationed up here to defend. Meanwhile, we've got Napoleon coming on the scene, rallying units that had fled, and Marmont slowly marching his way forward, but he's going to have to rest soon or else he's going to start taking fatigue penalties. I think it's better to move a little bit and then fully rest for 2 turns, or for a turn, to get the 2 fatigue points back, rather than try to do some kind of half movement or something like that. You get a better ratio of movement this way. But he's got a long while to get to the field. This is a big map to cross. We got coming up, not too distant future, we have more Young Guard coming in, and then the rest of the Guard as the evening starts to come close. All right, well, let's get started. Aboard something of a recovery turn here. I was mistaken. It was actually Pujol who is very fatigued. So I'm resting his cav. Kellerman's pulling back what little he has left. He has taken some heavy hits on his charges. A whole unit destroyed up there. Another one probably somewhere else. I don't know. I can't find them all. Aguilera is actually in good shape. I'm moving him forward half speed. I wasn't really within range to do to get in contact, and we'll see what happens. The Austrians are actually withdrawing, so we're going to lose our chance to catch them easily with the current orders, but that's okay, I think. Victor, what the hell's he doing? He did a limited recovery here, and not really moving much of his forces. Lauriston, again, half movement to try and continue bombarding Wittgenstein's forces as they withdraw. Victor also putting pressure on him as they withdraw. Poniatowski is the only real offensive action here, and we're pushing in, trying to make Kleist's position completely untenable. Kleist should be getting out of there, but he doesn't have his orders yet. Marmont took his rest turn, and that's about it. Now it's time to roll some dice and look some things up. Assuming my laundry's probably needs to get moved too. Marat taking a chill pill, and the French mainly relaxing. The half turn went relatively quickly and easily. Some recovery along the lines, and some further damage. And Russian gun over here got killed, stuff like that. Puts us over to the coalition side. Yay! Is that I like games of this huge scope, but I don't like it when there's, too big an engagement at any one time. And this is supposed to be a lot of little attacks. A lot of little battles are going to happen on here. Same way 7 days kind of happened, where there'd be engagements here and there, but this was a fairly hefty fight. Right now, there's just not enough oomph left to keep it going, though. And it's one of the reasons I kind of like the fatigue rule. Otherwise, there's very little reason for the attacker to slow down when they're winning. But the fatigue burden is heavier on the player who's attacking in general. Right now, the withdrawal is causing pains fatigue-wise, or will. But the fatigue rules are generally more of a pain for the attacker, and they provide a sort of a limit to how much you end up engaging. That's a big deal, because games that don't take something like that into account generally have fighting all throughout, everywhere, all along the line, in ways that's not historically accurate, and you end up with casualty counts that are ridiculous. My poster child for that is usually Terrible Swift Sword, where I get like 2 times the casualties that historically happened. But I also get heavier casualties even with things like the Civil War Brigade series, which have built-in mechanisms to them. The casualties end up heavier than they should be. And that's just a matter of, as a gamer, first of all, you're more likely to execute your orders as quickly as possible. Yes, the order systems and everything get in the way of that, but not as much. And things like fatigue definitely help. I'm trying to remember if there is a fatigue system in Essex Brigade games. There's factors. Units that are heavily in combat definitely have to take some time to recover, or else they just can't keep pressing the attack. And that does help suppress things. But I think the corrections, they don't go far enough under any circumstance that I've seen so far. This system, with its kind of onerous fatigue rules, actually does a pretty good job of pushing you into these units just can't keep pushing. You know, they have to rest because their morale is such that if they press an attack, their offensive, you know, they take defensive fire as they're approaching, whether they're meleeing or firing, and the morale just doesn't hold up to it once you get big enough fatigue levels. You know, even a -1 penalty is painful, right? That's the equivalent to the demoralization levels, I think. I don't know if they're -1 or -2. Let's see what the optional rolls. Looking for the Army morale rolls. Which I thought, here they are. Yeah, it's a -1 for demoralization. So, you know, it's a fairly significant factor, and you know, I mean, you're talking about the difference between like the Austrian forces that are fresh levies that aren't terribly well trained, and the Cossacks and stuff like that, and sort of the regular line units, a 7 to an 8, a 1-point difference. Now, the differences are on a bell curve, which is even more problematic. So like fatigued Austrians are a lot worse than the fatigue level for the French, because that drop from 7 to 6 is a really big deal, but whatever. We have the coalition armies largely in full withdrawal. The Prussians still under orders. Schwarzenberg got there in order to talk to Kleist. Hard to remember. But he's pulling back anyway because the situation was getting untenable around this, Krostowitz. We were in danger of getting completely surrounded there. And not a whole hell of a lot else. Hoping to be able to start rallying some of these troops. But again, we may have to fall off the board completely. We just do not have the troops available to hold a line as things appear to be developing. The French take another recovery turn just across the board, including actually recovering some stragglers. This game has essentially stragglers with cav and artillery and whatnot too, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, and even Marmont, I didn't want to move them, just make it easy. It still takes, you know, a good 15 minutes or so to process through everything. There was a little bit of gunfire, not much. The disengagement is pretty much completed, you know, with the French not pursuing because they need to recover. This may give us a turn or so to try to recover some of these forces as well, although the Austrians still have to make their way down to where they're aiming. The Prussians don't have their orders, but falling back is not an unreasonable option. I just might not be able to hold the flank if things collapse here again in the Russian center. That puts us to, what is it, 130, I think? Which should be, I don't know if that's right. I might be the next turn down. Because 9 was turn 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me just check these. Yeah, I should be at 2 o'clock, and this will be the turn 1 marker for that, which means the guard's coming in at this point. Although I'm sure it's from way down there, so they're probably not going to make it before the end of the day. Big map, man, big map. And just long, as opposed, you know, 5 maps long as opposed to like 3 maps along for the 7 days stuff. On the other hand, the hexes are bigger. Yeah. with the French, I'm left with some somewhat inconsistent orders. They don't fit the circumstances very well. In fact, they were confusedly written, to tell you the truth. So Victor has orders to attack between these two into that gap to get this, as far as I can see. That doesn't seem particularly applicable, and I may be better off continuing to rest. Victor still has some points. I may just cancel those orders. Poniatowski has orders, well, let's go to Lauriston. Attack basically through this area to get a line across here. I think I'm kind of okay with continuing those, although again I may want to continue some recuperation. And Poniatowski has orders come through here, sure, we did that, but then support Second Corps' attack all the way over here where I'm not ordering them to attack. I probably meant Crowburn, but so I'm feeling like these two corps, I probably want to cancel their orders. They've gone 3 turns and more pursuing them, so it's allowed. Then let's see, we get to Aguilar, and his current orders are to sweep down basically to here, which I'm okay continuing with. And but Murat probably wants to run somewhere and give someone else orders. What I think I'd like to do is concentrate on the Austrians. I can get a couple of corps and my cav against them, and they seem somewhat separated from everyone else. So that might be a good place to get sort of a local preponderance of force in play. I guess that's about it. Another turn where not a whole hell of a lot happened. Aguilar moving forward, everything else really recuperating, except Marmont and Mortier came in over there, not way over. It doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of difference. It's a little closer. Haven't decided what I'm doing with them yet. So far, Napoleon's moving up here because I think I'm going to need more flexibility of command over there. I can always roll for initiative for these guys, march them to the sound of the guns or whatever you want to call it. So, another little break. Okay, another relatively quick half turn here as the Prussians accomplish their orders, basically. The Austrians falling back to try to take their line along the river line here. Now, there's going to be a huge gap here that, you know, I can't prevent an outflank. I would kind of like to switch the Austrians and the Russians because I think the center's more important and the Russians have more cav to defend their flank with. But that's not really a possible thing to do. That kind of counter-marching is just too expensive with the fatigue rolls and whatnot. I'm feeling a little under the weather today, so I don't know what that means. Sore throat, drainage issues. We'll see. All right, another easy half turn, to tell you the truth. Pujols is moving forward to support Aguilar, and forgive any mispronunciations, misrememberings. I mean, it's Aguilar. Whatever. It's not, you know, it's not easy for me to remember. Some of these, he's a marshal too. an old one. But Napoleon coming closer. I'm trying to decide what the hell to do. I may just have some words with someone, but at some point I have to give Marmont some orders, although he can delay another turn, probably somewhere in this area or so. He's going to have to kind of park. I didn't write any orders, but to me, Leipzig is kind of the center of things, so it seems like a reasonable place for the French armies to kind of gather around, awaiting orders. And the same is going to go with, who is it up there, Mortier? Yeah. But just, you know, kind of enjoying these easier turns, especially since I feel like shit. And feeling like shit may impact, you know, how aggressive I'm gonna be. Just like the impact of Lee at Gettysburg, you know. You don't feel so good, yeah, let him take care, or Kutuzov at Austerlitz. Played a couple more of these half turns, and I gotta tell you, it hasn't been easy. I was feeling a little better during the day. After work, I went to sleep. The turns are very, very quick when nothing happens, and nothing's really been happening. We got Pujol, Kellerman starting to move forward. Augereau's forces actually got a shot in this time. Sending Napoleon back to go order Marmont and the guard. I thought he'd be important up here. Looking at the timing of the actions that I'm going to take. Yeah, drippy nose sucks with something this big. Any size, really, but looking at the actions I'm going to take, Lauriston is really the only thing that needs orders right now. So Murat's going to go have a chat with him and head things this way. The disadvantage is Napoleon would be really good at gathering stragglers, but he can kind of work with these guys. If I can get on top of one of them, I can write orders to both these commands. I didn't want to do it where I was because it would have taken like 4 turns to get there. But moving closer, as they move closer to me, again, I'm not using the aide-de-camps to deliver orders. I would rather use the simpler, just count the hexes and run things by that way. The aide-de-camps is a more detailed version where you're actually tracking how the order gets there. And it could even be intercepted and stuff in lousy situations. It makes things easier when forces are coming towards their orders, no matter what. And it makes things harder when forces are running away from their orders. Given the level of abstraction in this game, I would rather not add that level of detail. Generally, it's just not that important. Maybe I should have here, but whatever. I don't know. But this is all I can do. My drippy nose. My throat doesn't hurt as bad as it was earlier in the day. But now my nose has gotten drippy. I took something to actually make it that way, I guess. I don't know. French are on the offensive. I'm kind of jumping in just on their turns because not a lot's happening and whatever. I've been wiped out. I didn't play at all yesterday. And I don't know how much I'm going to be able to play today. I don't feel as good as I had hoped I would. So, gave orders to Lauriston and moving to Augereau, give him orders to sweep into the Austrians. The Austrians are actually in really bad shape. You know, I'm thinking, well, the Russians would be a better thing to hit. Honestly, the Austrians are pretty fucked up too. Because of their fatigue levels, they've had to run so far. They took some hits, so I think you know, 2 corps and 2 cav corps smashing into them will pretty much wipe them out, and I'll be able to roll around and then attack the Russians, assuming there's enough daylight. It doesn't look like there's enough to do both. And over here, Napoleon still taking another turn to get closer. At some point, I just write my orders and I head out, because I don't see sticking around down there too much longer. Especially, well, see, here's the thing. If I'm committing all of this way, Victor and Poniatowski are holding the road, pretty much. And yeah, I don't really expect the Prussians and the Russians to come marching forward, but I don't want to hit the Prussians. The Prussians are pretty solid. And I'm kind of recovering a lot of troops. Okay, maybe not a lot, but 1 per corps per turn, basically. And given that there's no limitation on recovering artillery, and I'm allowing it for this game, whatever, I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to tell what the designer really intends, you know. And the rules as written say you can do it. I can make arguments either way. The argument for is, hey, usually when you're taking casualties on the artillery units, it's the gun crew. But if you've got too small a gun crew, you might have trouble limbering limbering the guns and moving them out of dangerous positions and whatnot. So they might get abandoned anyway. And some of them are artillery hits, which probably are actually damaging the guns and the infrastructure more than just the gunners, where you could, you know, with the gunners you can say, well, they're straggler gunners, and you could also incorporate, you know, other people and turn them into gunners' assistants or whatever. But if you're looking at like the actual guns being destroyed, yeah, that's not going to get repaired easily. But on the other hand, maybe there are some abandoned guns lying around that they could go scavenge up. So, like, you know, like I said, you can argue it either way. And this time I fell on this side of the argument, because there's nothing in the rules that seems to prevent recovering troops that aren't infantry. In addition, you can recover the entirety of your strength back in units. Now, that's fine when there's a bunch of eliminated units, as there are, because there's probably a lot of stragglers around, and again, you can rope them up into other commands and whatever, you know. The units are kind of abstracted as it is. Like they said, they combined units into, you know, lots of what would be small units into somewhat larger units because of the casualties that have already been taken. So you could kind of argue it in that sort of sense. And that's not really like, oh, now you're part of this unit necessarily. It's actually gathering up troops from a different unit and just having them coordinate together, you know. Maybe leaders are gone and whatever, and you just kind of compact them. So it's not, it's really hard to deal when you're looking at a game that abstracts so much away to be able to use reason, because you can usually argue from multiple different positions. And we got the reinforcement, you know, Marmont and Mortier are both coming on. I don't know, you know, again, there aren't that many turns left, and they're kind of fatigued again, so who knows. All right. On the other hand, I might just send Napoleon up to Marmont, talk to him, write orders to Mortier, who I don't know what I'm going to do with, but I got 2 more guard corps coming in, and I feel like you know, playing something this big is somewhat taxing, even when I'm well. So like bending over the map and everything, I feel a little bit of physical exhaustion from even doing just the little bit that I did there. When I've got full-scale combat going on, you know, across the line like I did before, is a longer period of that kind of physical taxation. But I feel a little dizzy even, you know. Yes, I'm sick, but 1600 Drua showing up here. His forces still halted. Napoleon going to give his orders next turn, I guess. Was able to recover a strength point by doing it this way. And I'm pretty comfortable with the Cav, along with Auguero and marching against the Austrians. In fact, the Austrians, they're so weak. Like, I've kind of commented on this, but it's hard to tell because their unit isn't broken yet. But they start with a low morale. And so, like, Pujol did a charge, managed to get a unit into square, got countercharged when I went hunting Cav, but that's fine, and driven off. But then, and it's so slow getting the Cav up the hill through the, you know, this river part is really tough on the Cav. They can't go charging across it, so I've got to kind of work my way across, and that's part of what's fatiguing Pujol's forces. But yeah, did a single Cav charge, and then the unit that was in square got hit by some artillery back here. Long-range artillery fire broke it because morale is only 6 right now, and the Austrians are not getting a chance to recover their fatigue levels. They just keep having to move units and do stuff, and they're in really bad shape because of that. Got my orders off to everyone over here. I thought about giving orders to Victor, but I don't want to do that yet, or next turn even. So I didn't stack with him. I'm just recovering. Come up with my orders for Marmont, which probably are to march around and try to slam into here, given the orders that I've given to those guys. Though how Napoleon knows what Murat is ordering, I don't know. And that's about it. I think we'll do the Austrian turn and then probably close this one out, because not a lot's happened over this video, but a lot's about to happen, and I think it would be, you know, it's a nice framing of, wow, lots of nothing happening for a long time. Okay, so that's the end of the 1600 turn. We go to 1630. What happened? Not a whole hell of a lot. Some more fire, traded back and forth, but mainly just strengthening position. The Austrians didn't move. They moved their Cav and their artillery. That's it, which doesn't affect their capability to recover. And that's going to be the end of this video. I'll send this one up. Briefly, we've had a long pause, but it looks like an assault's going to begin going into the Austrians. It's already kind of started, but the reinforcements are going to have their orders and start making their way up very shortly. And I got to keep an eye out, keep someone patrolling back here, because tomorrow Austrians come in, I think, from this space. So I probably want to keep maybe the old guard defending this. Can't really use the old guard to attack with without incurring penalties, but I can use the young guard. So would really suck if all the guard were limited in that way. All right, up it goes.